Let me put the question. Those in favor that the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill 2021 be taken through the third reading, say aye. Aye. Those against, say no. Honorable members, the ayes have it. The Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill 2021 is read the third time and passed.
So it's one thing that Africans realize that we are not being ruled by the West. Africans, we are being ruled by the Most High. The Most High is the one who placed us in Africa. The white man did not place us in Africa. So when we choose not to abide by gazing, it shouldn't be their problem. It should be our problem. I don't know why they make it their own problem. Being gay is something abominable. It's not an African culture. It's not. We have like 1,000 reasons not to accept it. So personally, I don't support it. I don't support gazing. Not that I'm against people who practice it, but I'm against the action. God tells us that be against the sin, don't be against the sinner. Against the sin of homosexuality is what we should be. We've seen that some other African countries, like only 12 African countries have accepted. And we also have some countries where you practice gay, you get a death sentence. Death sentence, including Tanzania. Death sentence for gays. Oh my goodness. This is how serious it is. And it's not like these people are the ones placing it. It is God. Even the Islams are against it totally. Totally against it, the Islams. Those Islam countries do not accept it at all. Do not accept it at all. Africans should be left with their own values. Are we doing this because of the money? Is it the money? You see, there's a verse in John which says, do not love the world or anything in this world. If you love the world, the love of the Father is not in you. For the things of the world cometh to pass, but the name of the Lord and the love of God endureth forever. So do you want to build, do you want to put your odds, do you want to invest your money on a bank that is going bankrupt? Do you want to place your money on something that you see failing? This thing is not gonna work. It's not, and even if it does, it's not gonna last. Because this earth belongs to God, and God is the one who gives us the legislation of how to live here. He gave man the authority over animals. Animals don't practice homosexuality. Why should humans?
After a 3-year-long stint, Ghana's parliament has passed an anti-gay bill.
Under this new law, anybody who is identified as LGBT, or if you know someone who is LGBT and don't denounce that person to the authorities, you can also face a jail term of at least 3 years. Second point, 5 years in jail for funding LGBT activity. That's all to do with associations and other organisations. And then 10 years in jail if you are part of an LGBT advocacy campaign for children. So it's all quite bad news for the gay community.
I'm personally glad. I'm happy that this bill has been passed. Looking at our youth today and this gay aspect which they are bringing, in fact, we are almost near to disaster, if I would say. Because I've heard of this gay aspect where men and men has been sleeping. And this has brought about a lot of people who are sick. They wear pampers. Whenever they are going to the private, they just pass out faces unnoticeably. And they are sick, just looking for money. And secondly, our culture does not actually promote this type. It is very uncertain very unfortunate for this foreign culture, which even the Bible speaks a bit against it. Remember in Sodom, this was what the practice was going. And that actually caused the anger of God in Genesis 19 to destroy the whole city. Why then should we have to embrace this? Is it because of money? Remember that we are not ruled by international allies. It is God who created this earth and the heavens. And we look up to him. When he says yes, it is yes. When it is no. So anything that God dislikes, it brings curse, not only upon this generation, but many generations to come. So it's a plus. And I want to commend the Speaker of Parliament, who was, he was spearheading all this. And members of Parliament, our elders, the President, and everyone who fearlessly have passed this. One day, my prayer is that the whole world will cancel.
What is the reason for this law?
Okay, well, this law, I think, shows a certain hardening of the stance of, and a shift to the far right, basically, in Ghana, which has come after calls from religious groups, Muslim groups, Christian groups, and traditional religious groups in Ghana, following the introduction and then closure of the first LGBT centre in Ghana a couple of years ago, and then arrests of more people afterwards. This new law is making it much harder for gay people to live normal lives in Ghana. Not that they were able to do that beforehand, because already they faced 3 years in jail if they were caught having sex, for example, together. But this has made it much harder. Now, in Ghana, we've seen a tightening of the bill already, which now looks like it's going to go through and be signed by the president, who said that if the people of Ghana want it to be promulgated into law, then he will sign it.
I've been to Ghana, and I know it's a very deeply religious country, but it isn't the only state in Africa to have such strict anti-gay laws. Where is it safe to be gay on the continent? Well,
there is good news and bad news. The good news is that it's never been criminalised, homosexual activity, in 12 African countries. It's been decriminalised in 10 others. South Africa was the first country to allow same-sex marriage, and Namibia has now declared that same-sex marriage must be considered exactly in the same context as heterosexual marriage. So there is some progress. But if you look at figures in Africa on this map, for example, you can still see that the death penalty can be upheld in at least 4 countries, 5: Somalia, Somaliland, Mauritania, northern Nigeria, and especially in Uganda, which has just passed an even more harsh anti-LGBT law last year. There are also a banning of homosexual activity in 31 out of 54 nations. So it is still a very difficult continent to live your life in freely if you are from the LGBT community, even if there are some cracks of light. This latest legislation being passed in Ghana certainly is pushing things back, and there's been this outcry from the United States, from the United Nations, from many other countries saying this law should not be passed. Now in the hands of the president. We'll see whether he signs it into law. He's got 7 days to do that.
Mr. Speaker, should we hurriedly suspend the rules and say that we are past it? It means that the doors would have been shut on this floor, on me as a member, with my own bona fides, just as they do. We have allowed the sponsors today, Mr. Speaker. When the sponsors came, they said they have further amendment. By the way, Mr. Speaker, at the time this whole bill was considered, we were supposed to straight away go to 3rd reading, because it was ripe for 3rd reading. But the sponsors came with an application for a further 2nd consideration. In other words, though we had moved past 2nd consideration, they came back again for 2nd consideration. Nobody opposed it. Mr. Speaker, I only pray that the application, the prayer, Mr. Speaker, I'm not really making an application, which application would have to be subjected to a vote. I'm not making an application properly so-called. I'm not making an application properly so-called. I am appealing to the chair that in the spirit of consensus building, as has always been part of our practice,
I am appealing to my colleagues through Mr. Speaker that in view of the changes that have been introduced by the sponsors themselves, I feel inclined by that to do further amendments. Mr. Speaker, perhaps one of the reasons why my amendment on clause 12 failed was because it had not been advertised. And that members were not on notice. My friend Defiamako, my friend Sam George, and colleagues who are part of this process, let's accommodate each other. The beauty of this democracy is when we are able to listen to each other. No matter how long it may be, you will have your day. It's an appeal. So, Mr. Speaker, please grant my prayer. Mr. Speaker, please grant my prayer so that I will be able to file my amendment so that I can come formally to move for second consideration. If it fails, if I bring my amendment and those amendments fail, there's no problem. Mr. Speaker, I rest my case.
Honourable members.
First, the honourable member seeks the leave of the House to accordingly suspend our orders to pave way for the third reading to be read. The Speaker, accordingly, all of us, in fact, voted for the suspension of our rules, and the leave was accordingly granted. The Speaker, it is only right for us to complete the process. So the honourable member is on his feet. The Speaker, the only thing he has to do is to move the motion and for the third reading. And if that is done, the Speaker and the House will take a decision on that. So, Speaker, I urge the honourable member to move the motion accordingly. And after that is done, the Speaker, we can move on to any other business. But until then, the Speaker, I don't think that there's any other business before. The business before us is the third reading. We have started the process and we have to complete it.
That's a very, very big question that humans can learn from the animals. How much an animal can we turn into to practice such things, you know? So apparently the president of Ghana has come back to his senses. He's done a very powerful thing to the nation of Ghana. And you know, the nation of Ghana was the first African country to gain independence. And when Kwame Nkrumah established the independence, becoming the first president, he said that as long as any single African country was still being colonized or was not having independence, Ghana was still not independent. Yeah, that is what Kwame Nkrumah said in the 1950s when Ghana became the first African country to gain independence from the British, you know. And so up until now, we've been looking towards growth, towards Africans have been looking towards independence entails breaking ties, breaking the bondage, breaking the strained relationship that has always existed between the white people, who are the colonizers in this case, and the Africans, you know. Up until today, the president of Ghana has been doing things which are controversial to the beliefs of the forefathers of Africa, to the beliefs of Kwame Nkrumah, to the beliefs of other African leaders that we find around us, you know. Because one time the president was telling on Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger to the American government. The other time he was chasing away the Pan-African movement. This time he's done such an important thing that Nana Akufo-Addo, you've really done a nice work, and this is a nice one. This is a nice one. You know, you can never legislate morality. That's a concept, and that is a true phenomenon. You can never legislate morality. No matter how hard you try, morality will always be morality. You know, and Africans, we have our own values. We have our own values that we borrow from We borrowed from our ancestors. Our ancestors borrowed them from their ancestors. And you find that we have this what we call objective morality. It is God who constructs objective morality. For example, it is not right to commit murder. It is not right to shed blood. It is not right to steal. There are things which you don't need to be a Christian in order for you to know that they are wrong, you know. But in some way, the West has always tried to convince Africans to accept LGBTQ. They have made it a concept of humanity, you know. Africans, we have many problems. We have hunger issues. We have people who are being jailed. We have people who are being jailed for refusing to accept LGBTQ. We have many Africans who are suffering trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea, going to Europe, going to the Emirates, going to those Arab countries as well. I think those are the most important things we should address. We should address that child who is going angry. We should address that uneducated community, how they should get educated. Now, the West is really pushing this LGBTQ agenda on the throats of Africans, and they do this by manipulating the president. So the president becomes a puppet. As I told you in those previous videos, a puppet is something that you can easily control. You pull your hand, you pull your left hand, it pulls its left hand. You want it to pull its right hand, you pull your right hand, okay? This is how a puppet works. It's the model of a puppet. But now the president of Ghana has just convinced us we can rely on him. He has told us that, no, I've accepted many things, but no, I'm not accepting LGBTQ. No more LGBTQ. And this is a sign of hope. This is a sign of justice. This is a sign of we have hope. We just have hope seeing Nana Akufo-Addo standing up and speaking for the Africans. We have hope seeing Nana Akufo-Addo rejecting LGBTQ. You know, it is one of the strictest. It is the strictest, actually, even the worst than we have in Uganda. It's very tight. Somebody could be jailed for decades on the grounds of LGBTQ. Somebody could be jailed for decades. This tells you how serious this thing is, and we have people like Sam George. Sam George have walked ahead, have walked steadfast. He has joined UN meetings. He has talked even to the Kenyan Larry Madowo, who is working at the CNN, and he's very broad. He's very bold, and he speaks against something that indeed he speaks for the voice of many Africans. Come to think of it, when we take the number of African gays or African lesbians, you know, or Africans queer, I don't know why they call themselves queer. You call yourself queer, you are a queer against God. You turn away against the laws of God. The laws of the land are the laws of God. Who made them into the land? We are born, we find them. You know, so you don't turn against we Africans. You're turning against your creator. And I believe there's a punishment for that in the afterlife. I surely do believe in the afterlife. So there are things which indeed connects us together, our beliefs. We Africans, although I don't encourage it, have been polygamous. We practice a lot of polygamy, but we've never walked ahead and told the West to accept polygamy, to be part of polygamy. We've never done that. What we always do is we keep it to ourselves. It's our tradition. If the West finds that LGBTQ is their tradition, let them keep it for themselves. And this is where you find many Africans coming together and saying, no, we don't want this. We don't want this. LGBTQ is a very serious problem. You know, on the surface, it looks very light. On the surface, it looks very not sweet. I don't know. It's not sweet. On the surface, it looks so humble. And no, this thing is a monster. This thing is a monster that's covered in the skin of a sheep. It's covered. It's a monster. It's a monster that a teacher is teaching LGBTQ in classroom. In USA, LGBTQ is being taught. It's a nasty thing that children are learning to be rebellious. It's a nasty thing that a child is born male, but they decide they don't want to be male. They become female, and they become female. They just go to the laboratory and make themselves female. How? Like, how? How do you think the Most High feels about this? A lot of us are not going to enter heaven. How do you think the Most High feels about this? Watching the people he created turn themselves opposite. You know, when Moses was writing the book of Genesis, the book of Genesis was written by Moses, and he was inspired by the Holy Spirit. So when Moses was writing this book, they said after God created everything, he saw that everything he made was good, and God was glad that he made everything good. Now, let's move some generations ahead. There was a city called Sodom and Gomorrah. These people were so morally corrupt. It's like today, but I think that one was too much. It was like today. I think I myself have not gone to such places, but I think they exist even up to today. We still have Sodom and Gomorrah. So we know how the story goes. There's a lot of sexual immorality in that city. Not just any sexual immorality. The perversive, it goes against nature, sexual immorality. These people they were so much into sodomity. They were so much into gayism, into lesbianism, that God had to ban them all. God had to wipe the whole earth. God had to wipe that whole city because of that sin. It's not once that God has wiped the entire continent, the entire world because of sin. The first one, it was the time of Noah. There was a lot of witchcraft. There was a lot of killings. There was a lot of magic. There was a lot of this and that. There was a lot of giants. There was a lot of this. There was a lot of sin. God wiped the earth because he was grieved at his heart when he saw this. And now, Sodom and Gomorrah came. God wiped them with fire. And now, we still have another Sodom and Gomorrah. If Africans, we want not to test the wrath of God, there are things we should never do. And I'm glad these presidents, the Spirit of God has spoken to them. Yoweri Museveni came up front and told them, no, it's better you keep your money and we keep our values, because Solomon says, better value than success. Value is better than success. When I mean value, value means moral values, ethics. This is what it means. And Ghana has become ethical. The president of Ghana seems he has boundaries. He has accepted not to pass the bill to allow gays. So it's going to be tight. Eventually, because this world is going to be conquered by the enemy, eventually, this thing is going to come in. It might not be in my generation and your generation. It might not be in this generation. But eventually there comes a time when things will be so hard. Things will be so hard. Remember to always stay natural. Stay natural. Man, God created them male and female. God did not create two males. He first created the man in his own image and likeness. The man. The man is the one who closely resembles God, men. Then women were made as man's helpers. It was a man and a female are both similar, but we have a little bit of structural differences. Just that. But God made them male and female. A man shall leave his home, and a woman shall leave his home. The two shall come together, and they shall make a family, and they shall become one. That is what the Bible identifies. All these things we are seeing, the gay pastors, lesbian pastors, this is not part of the script. This is not part of the God's law. No. If God wanted gays, he would have allowed it. The Bible is too complex and also too simple for people to understand and people not to understand. It's too simple for you not to say, I did not understand this part. And it's too complex for people who are trying to misuse it not to understand it. The Christ says that the knowledge of the heavens have been hidden to the wise and the knowledgeable of the earth, and it has been revealed to the babies. to the babies. Who is a baby? A baby is somebody who does not have a brain. A baby does not think. A baby just acts. So the things of the heavens, which are too complex, are revealed to the people who are the too simplest. You see, things are vice versa. Now, so on, so forth. I'm glad the people of Ghana have chosen this approach, and thank you, the people of Ghana, for making this step. God will surely reward you for this, because in as much as we are in the hard times, we are trying as much as possible to do the right things. Thank you, Nana Akufo-Addo. Thank you, Sam George. Thank you to the Africans of Ghana. I salute you, men. So see you in the next video. If you like this content, kindly subscribe to the channel. Give me a super thanks. Join my Patreon. It really helps me a lot to bring more videos to you. Yeah. So see you in the next video, and remember to stay positive. Stay positive, and don't allow yourselves to be corrupted by the words of the enemy.